Okay, guys, let's get started. It's Saturday, September 3rd. My name is Dave Coker. This is Talking About Finance, and you know the routine by now. 7 slides for 7 days. My buddies and I, there are about 50 of us, we have a Telegram channel and we talk about finance pretty much 24/7, global crowd. And I try to bring the best or the most interesting things in for you guys, although I pepper it with some of my own research from time to time. So as we always do, we're going to start out by looking at the S&P 500. This time over the past week, and my gosh, look at this mess. Holy cow. Little speckles of green here and there, but overall this market's been battered. This market's been beaten. I think this market's been abused. The U.S. economy isn't as bad off as some folks seem to think it is. Job numbers, corporate profits are stable. Sure, interest rates are rising, but the Fed is certainly telegraphing their intent. There's no surprises there. And surprises are the one factor historically that we know will crater stocks. So I think people just got to chill. I bought stocks on Thursday using dividends paid from August. It was the 1st of September. And again, as I always do, I bought both Ripple and Bitcoin. Buy and hold, guys, is the name of the game. In this macro, cash is trash. Total trash. You don't want to be holding cash. The S&P 500 was down 3.3% on the week. It's now down about 17.7% year to date, a dismal year. The VIX traded down from 25.56 to 25.47, so essentially unchanged. It's roughly one standard deviation, close to one standard deviation above the mean. The 10-year note traded up to 3.20%. It's up 1.7% year to date. So yeah, Treasury yields are rising. It seems as though the market is expecting future interest rate hikes, which is consistent with what we're seeing in Fed futures markets. Oil closed the week at 87.02. It's down about 6.5% week on week, up about 15.7% year to date. So guys, lots of uncertainty in the markets, lots of fear. But from our way of thinking, this is a perfect time to buy. Don't be moving to cash. You need to be fully invested in this market, in this macro. It doesn't matter what you buy, stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, Ripple. You need to be holding something in this market. Remember, people are going to think you crazy. Some people call me a psychopath to my face because I never sell. I just buy. Every week, I buy. Every month, I buy. I've never been so fully invested. I always used to keep a little cash around just in case a deal surfaced. But now cash is trash, and yeah, I'm a psychopath. I just buy, guys, and you should too. Excellent time. Speaking of the markets and what's going on, this is a really interesting one somebody put up on the Telegram channel. Yeah, it does kind of look like we're ending up in a Cold War again. However, this time it's going to be different. Previously, China wasn't as developed, and now China's ultra developed. In many ways, it leads the United States in many, many ways. And I'm not just talking in terms of technology, fintech. I'm just talking socially as well. They've done amazing things in that country for people, the 420 odd million people that were lifted out of poverty. We haven't done anything quite like that in the States or even in the West. So it's going to be very different this time if we do drift into a new Cold War. I don't know why our leaders just don't get down and start talking to the Russians. But I also do know that this type of diversion supports the President of the United States, in particular, a foreign enemy. Well documented that in times of international disorder, people tend to flock and come to the President and support him. Another thing we got to think about is that inflation is all around us. On the right-hand side of the chart, what I've done here is I've charted CPI. This is part of what my research reports. I did about 1,000 words, maybe a little bit less on this and a couple other topics. But on the right-hand side, I've got CPI over the past 60 years. We're talking about percentage change over a one-year period. And you can see on the right-hand side, we're starting to enter a period of high inflation again. Of course, going from right to left, you can see that CPI inflation has gradually decreased. In other words, going from left to right, you can see it increased, which means over the horizon, for roughly from the 80s rather, it's been decreasing. And this is all due to globalization, where America, or the West in particular, outsourced manufacturing to developing nations, outsourced the production of energy to developing nations. And now globalization is reversing. And if you think about this, you can find ways to make money. It's absolutely incredible. We're going to be doing onshoring and nearshoring like we haven't seen in this country for, speaking of America, of course, for 40 years, 50 years, we haven't seen that type of thing. It's really fascinating. Of course, in this macro, we know that there's a lot of issues with the consumer. And one thing I like to do is I look at the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. It's constructed every month. I tend to track it, and it's at a record low. It's bounced up slightly, but look at the spending over the same horizon. Typically, the consumer sentiment was rising across the horizon right up until the COVID recession. And then we saw consumer sentiment take a sharp drop until April of 2021. Then it started to rise again. And then April 2021 to the present, it dropped precipitously. And still, spending is up. And really curious question is, what are they spending this money on? Well, here I've got two different measures of spending. The personal consumption expenditure, but I'm looking at two different metrics, goods and services. And goods is the black line, and services are the blue line. And you can see before the pandemic, spending on services largely outstripped spending on services, at least from 2015 on. But something changed after the pandemic. And we can see that spending on goods has soared well above the long-term trend, while spending on services is also above the long-term, is far below the long-term trend. Really, really fascinating, this shift that's gone on. And it's what I call the change, the shift to survival spending. Inflation's battering the consumer. They're miserable, as we saw in the prior slide. And now what they're doing is they're shifting their spending to goods, to things that they need to survive, away from services, things like that. Really fascinating. Okay, here's the crypto market sentiment analysis. Yeah, fear and greed, right? Extreme fear. It's been lower. I thought I saw, we talked about 6 weeks ago or so, it was down to a 19. We're still buying. And just keep buying, guys. It's the only way to really make sure you're going to be making money in this market. And here's a really fascinating one. I can't remember the guy that did, it's from Coinmetrics, but I'm not sure. That's where the chart came from. I can't remember the analyst that produced it. Doesn't matter. It's good work, though. What we've got here is we've got the 90-day correlation, trailing correlation, between Bitcoin and the S&P 500. And you can see roughly right up until 2000 or so, the correlations were low and perhaps even negative, but something fundamentally changed from the year 2000 on. And what happened then was we started to see the launch of some Bitcoin futures ETFs and other structured products that allow people to buy Bitcoin, and also allows institutions to purchase Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures and things like that. So it seems like Wall Street has bitten into and gotten its hands on Bitcoin. And yeah, it's going to change a little bit, but it won't change that much. Sorry about this. And here's an interesting one. A lot of times people complain Bitcoin's too expensive. 20,000 for a coin, I can't afford that. Yes, you can. Can you come up with $200? If you can come up with $200, you can buy 1/100th of one Bitcoin. That is 1 million Satoshis. You'll be a Bitcoin millionaire. That's all you got to tell people. People ask how much Bitcoin you got, just say, I'm a Bitcoin millionaire. It's factually true, a little deceptive, but who goes around asking people how much Bitcoin you got? I certainly don't answer that. I ain't got none. As you know, I buy every week, but I got none. No Bitcoin. Okay, guys, that's it for this week. Have a wonderful weekend. Excellent Saturday night. You're going to have a really profitable week, whatever you get up to. Take care.